What happens when your worst fear becomes your reality? Hi, I'm Brent Cassidy. Welcome to Nightmare Success In and Out Podcast, where we explore how to overcome your fears and nightmares to set yourself free. We're going to be exploring this topic with guys I was in Leavenworth with and others who served time at other prisons. We're going to be talking about life before prison, life in prison, and life out of prison. These stories can be inspiring, sometimes sad. There's some humor, but hopefully you can come away with a nugget of something that'll help you knock down some of the prisons you've built up in your own mind. All right, folks, here we go. I am really excited about my guest today because Dion came to me from the guy that I work for, Jose Ponce, which Jose Ponce has been excellent to me throughout everything that I've been through. So this is cool that I'm now getting a guest that Jose ran into, and his story, Dion's story, is Dion. Do you say your name Soubasis? Is that
Soubasis? Yeah.
Soubasis.
Dionysus Soubasis.
Dionysus Soubasis. Is that Greek?
Yes, I'm Greek. Okay. But I go by Dion for short because it seems like a lot of people have a hard time saying
I'm going with Dion. I'm good at Dion. So Dion's story is it's interesting from a lot of different angles because he was a guy that was kind of in and out of trouble. He gets a 30-year sentence that has all these enhancements on it, and the enhancements don't allow parole. You know, you fast forward into this story, and there's some people that go and talk to the governor and say, hey, this isn't right. There's a law passed. They're not making it retroactive. These guys aren't getting out. One of the ladies that was at this meeting reads about Dion's story by happenstance the night before and brings up his name in this meeting. Governor Parsons then commutes and pardons some people after this meeting, but they aren't the people that they talked about at that meeting. And then a few months later, Dion gets the good news that he is one of those that has been put in line to be given opportunity for parole, and he's got a hearing, and that's why Dion's sitting with me here today. Dion, welcome in, my man.
Thank you very much, Brent. I appreciate it.
So good to have you here, and we've spent some time talking before this, and it's an incredible story, and one that, you know, what you've gone through and the transformation that you made, Dion, and then how you and we're going to go into all this, but I guess the word's inspiring because you could have curled up in a corner and in a fetal position and given up. You'd still be in prison if you'd given up, by the way, and your life would have been exactly as it was when you came in, just not any good and no hope.
Absolutely.
So Dion, walk me back a little bit. Where'd you grow up? What was your family like?
Man, it's crazy because I was born in Virginia.
Okay.
My dad was a horse jockey. My mom trained horses, so we kind of lived up and down the East Coast when I was young. Ended up in Chicago for a while, and literally been everywhere, man. Believe it or not, it's crazy.
Virginia's a little ways away from here.
Yeah, I don't really remember it.
But your dad was a horse jockey.
Yeah, he was.
Did you ever have anything to do with horses?
Yeah, I rode horses when I was young. Yeah, I haven't rode a horse. I couldn't tell you when. But, I ended up in, we lived in Oklahoma for a while, and then we ended up in Missouri, and in LaGrange, Missouri, where my grandparents moved from Chicago, Illinois to there, and kind of stayed in there for, about 5 years or so. And my mom had left, my real dad, and it was with my stepdad, who basically raised me from that time on, who was probably one of the best men I've ever met in my entire life.
So then, as you were growing up as a kid, was everything pretty normal? Maybe did you feel like, I don't know any different, but this feels pretty normal?
Yeah, I'd say I had a pretty normal life.
Yeah?
For sure, yeah.
So as you got a little bit older, got into high school, what was high school like?
High school was cool too, man. I enjoyed high school. That's kind of around the time where you start, a little bit before then, around 14, you start, experiencing, the streets and different people, and you kind of start
trying to be cool,
being cool, yeah, and sampling, weed and drinking and doing things like that, and that's kind of where it kind of started for me, and I kind of got involved with the wrong crowd, and it was a slow process, and it kind of ended up with me being involved with some gang activity and drugs and trying to live that fast-paced life, that you romanticize in the movies and things like that. You see all these movies and then you start to romanticize and be like, oh man, this is something I want to do.
Yeah.
The money,
because
the
you feel like that's part of being a part of something.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Did it feel like, Dion, when you were getting involved in that, did it feel like I'm stepping outside, I'm with the wrong people, I'm doing the wrong thing, but it's exciting and fun, adventuresome, or did it just feel like it wasn't that different?
No, it was definitely adventurous. It was definitely different. Yeah, you once you get set on that wrong path, it's just it's a spiral downhill, and then so many different things happen in my life, like my father had passed away, and I dropped out of school in like 10th grade. There are so many negative things that happen in my life that just give you another reason to say, or you feel like it gives you a reason, especially when you're young, to say, you know what, I'm just going to do this, matter. And it just doesn't matter anymore, and that's where you.
Well, a lot of people say too, when you drop out of school, the people that are in school are getting where they're wanting to get to, and the people that have dropped out are getting with people who probably aren't doing good things. Absolutely. So it's easier to get in trouble when you've dropped out of school, even if you're trying to do right.
Absolutely.
So when did you start getting into trouble? Is that?
Oh yes, yes, absolutely. It's crazy because I had some friends of mine that had been to prison. I'm like, man, you've been to prison? I was like, man, I need some street cred, man. I want to go to prison. I said, who thinks they want to go to prison?
Right.
It's crazy. And, I just started getting in trouble. And, next thing you know, I landed in prison. And,
well, how old would you have been, Dion?
I was 19 years old when I first went to prison.
What was that experience like for you heading in to, that 19-year-old kid now looking back on it? What was going through that 19-year-old kid standing and looking at prison?
If you're going to be real with yourself, you're 19 years old, you get to prison, you got these, as soon as you're coming down this hill and you see this huge prison with all these barbed wire fences and electric fences, man, you get in there, it's got this huge door that clings shut, and you've got hundreds of guys standing naked in the room, and it's terrifying. You're like, man, what did I get myself into? What'd I do? And you're like, man, this is just, it's horrible. It's a horrible situation. And you're like, man, how did I get myself into this? And then it's just a thought process from there on. And
how'd you do your first stint there in prison as a young kid? Did you find people that you knew? Did you get into prison jobs? I mean, what was that first stint like?
Well, when you get to prison, everybody's got their eye on you. So like, all right, this guy's cool, he's not cool. They watch the way you walk, the way you talk, how you move, what you look like, and then people decide whether they like you or not. And then people want to take you under their wing, and so you learn things, and a lot of times it's not for the good. You know what I mean? So a lot of these older guys don't really want to, they want to teach you the bad things, things that you can get away with, right. So it really, one thing that I learned over my large incarceration is that, a lot of people don't really change unless they do double digits or more, just from my experience. I say, if you go in for 6 months or a year or whatever, you go in there, you just get to hang with your homies or whatever. And then, most people are in there smoking weed or doing drugs, and they get back out and they're like, you know what, it's not that bad in there.
And they haven't changed that much while they were in anyway.
And they didn't. No. Right. So it's a revolving door. They get out and they go back in. I was one of those people who
just went in and out. How long did you stay in there first time, 19-year-old?
I would say probably like a year, something like that.
Yeah.
And then, you get out and you're on parole, and then you're like, man, I'm not going to listen to what a parole officer says. I'm going to keep smoking weed, and I'm going to keep dropping dirty and keep, doing this kind of stuff, and nobody's going to tell me what to do. You know, and that's how you think. That's your thought process, and it's crazy.
So are you at this time when you're getting out, do you have a relationship with a girlfriend? What's your personal life like when you return back?
Yeah, I had when I was young is what you're asking, right? Yeah. I had a girlfriend at the time, and when you go to prison, your girlfriends don't really stick around. Right. They do their own thing. So you get back out, you reconnect, and then you get back on the same path you was on before. And it's, like I said, it's a revolving door. And if nothing changes, man. And, I just had that young man mentality, and every time I got out, I just started selling drugs again. Mm-hmm. And it's fast, easy money. And who wants to work when you got a way to make money, just hand over fist? So
life was good. I mean, as far as the way things were going for you, getting out, you got into the drug world, and that is an adventuresome world, and being young and having money is, for a lot of people, the time of their life.
Yeah.
So walk me through, Dion, when your nightmare happened.
Well, I was saying the late 90s and early 2000s when I really started trafficking drugs largely. It just kept making more and more money, and I just got wiser and wiser at it. And then in 2004, I was in a hotel room in St. Charles, and I had like 13 ounces of methamphetamine. I went where the money was at, and I told this girl who I was with, I said, hey, get this hotel room for another night, because we were living out in, we was moving into this house in Florissant. And so she called down to the front desk and said, hey, we do need this room for another night. And they're like, you can't have it. You can get the one down the hall. So I bagged all my stuff up and went down to the room down the hall. And I guess I'd left stuff, in the trash can or whatever, baggies and stuff. And that's when they came in there, and the janitor saw it. And I guess he kind of, had an idea what was going on. And they called the cops, and long story short, I ended up in jail. And as I was in jail, I just, I thought it's all or nothing, and I had an attorney. I had money, a lot of money saved up and stuff. And, we got an attorney, and I really had no chance. And I thought, I'm just going to take it to trial. Long story short, I took it to trial and lost, man. They gave me 30 years without the possibility of parole.
That without the possibility of parole is like what they do with first-degree murder in Missouri, right?
Yes, it is. It's.
So how did you, first of all, did you even know that was a possibility to get the no possibility of parole?
Yeah, they call it the WAP. And no, I didn't. It really wasn't explained to me like that. And, who would ever think that the most nonviolent crime,
right,
which is drugs,
right?
The spectrum is weird, because you can get a life without, literally a life without, because it held 10 to 30 or life for the same thing as that somebody gets for murder. And it didn't make any sense.
No.
So it didn't really, hit me. And then once I really found out about it, when I got to prison, I was like, man, what did I get myself into?
What were you thinking that day when they said that? I can't imagine.
Yeah, I was mad. I was mad at my lawyer. I was mad at everybody, man. And I just, I was like, what am I going to do? How is this going to work?
Yeah. And how old would you have been when they said you got 30 with no parole?
I was like 28.
Yeah.
29, something like it. It was in 2000. See, I got locked up in 04. I got sentenced in 05. And then I went straight to prison in 05. And it was terrifying. And
you went to a max?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I went to a Charleston prison in Missouri. It's down in the Boot Hill. And it was crazy. It was a whole different experience than what I experienced before. So everybody there has got life without, or large sentences.
Yeah, they're not getting out anytime soon.
No.
So they're really living their life in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you roll in there? How did you learn to strategize yourself into how am I going to live this?
Yeah, I just, it's crazy because, I knew a lot of people already because I've been incarcerated many times, and I'm a white guy with gold teeth, and I get in there, so as weird as that sounds, it kind of gives you some street cred. So people's like, oh, this guy's got to be cool,
Mm-hmm.
So, you just connect with people, and and I didn't even communicate with anybody for 2 years from the streets, which was crazy. And I had friends in there, and they're like, hey, man, I know you don't got anything. Let me give you some weed to sell or whatever, So I'm in prison selling drugs and surviving and involved in the gang activity and things like that, and just not really caring. You just kind of...
Just fell into it.
You just fell into
it.
Which
kind of probably felt more comfortable because it was maybe more what you were used to anyway on the outside.
Pretty much, yeah.
So you have something that happens, and I was reading the article, Riverfront Times. It's almost like you had that rock bottom moment where you basically have your head in your hands, thinking, "Man, I could die in here. Is this how I want my life to live and be thought of as Dion?" And something happens. We haven't really talked about how this all happened, but you did a transformation of how your mindset was and what you were looking for your future. What did happen, Dion?
What happened is I literally just woke up one morning, man. I got up and I sat in my chair and my celly was gone. I just looked around. I was like, man, I don't even have a TV. I don't have anything. What's going on with me?
Yeah.
I was like, man, I kind of put my head in my hands and kind of really started crying. I was like, man, I'm going to die in prison. It just hit me all of a sudden, And there was this guy who kept getting on me about God. He's like, man, you need to turn your life over to God. You need to turn your life over to God. And I was like, man, And then that day, I literally set my life to change. I said, this place offers every opportunity in the world for me to better myself. And I said, you know what? I'm going to die in prison. I know I am. There's no question about it. At that point in time, I never thought I was going to get out. I knew I was going to die in prison. I said, you know what? Today it starts.
That's a deep thought, Dion.
It is, man. And I was like, I'm going to die in prison, but I'm not going to die stupid. Man, I'm going to do everything I can to better myself. That day, I turned my life over to God. I set out to better myself. I took every class I could, did everything I could, went to college. I got a degree in theology, started college again. I became a staff barber for 14 years. I set out to be the best I could be at everything I could. I got 4,137 hours of on-the-job training in woodworking at in prison. It's called Missouri Vocational Enterprises. And I just started bettering myself in every single way and started impacting people in a positive way. And people started seeing it. And then I got involved in this program that was called the Global Leadership Summit. And it teaches you how to be a leader. And it's a Christian-based thing, and it's broadcast live over 100 different countries, 100 different languages. It's amazing. And
you just snapped into like everything that they had. You took advantage of.
Yeah.
As far as the people you were around, I guess because you went to do different things, you were around different people.
Yeah.
You went to get a degree in theology. I guess you're around people who are focused and thinking, I'm doing this, I'm going to better myself. But the thing that I find so interesting about this, Dion, is that you're still not thinking you're getting out without parole. So you're just deciding to make yourself a better person in prison, with not knowing what's going to be out there, or if you're going to serve this full 30, no parole, that none of that had changed yet.
No, I knew I was going to die in there still, but I was like, it doesn't matter.
I'm going to be a better person.
It doesn't matter, man. I'm going to be in here and I'm going to start impacting people in a positive way. I want people to see that you can change. And, believe it or not, I see other people in prison. You see a handful of people that really change. You're like, you know what? I see this guy. I recognize it. This guy is the real deal.
Mm-hmm.
You just see it, you feel it, and you're on that same path.
Yeah.
And that's something I wanted to do. I just wanted to, no matter what happened in life, even if I was in prison, I wanted to better myself and just be better for myself. I want to learn how to.
When you started doing these good things, you started feeling better about yourself, getting confidence about what was going on. Is that when you felt like you felt comfortable reaching out to your daughter, Bree?
Yeah.
Because at that time when you went in, she was 8 years old. There wasn't much of a relationship there from what I can tell.
Right.
And then you reach out. What was that like?
Well, actually, she'd reached out to me the first time. We communicated for about a year. And then, she was like 14.
Yeah.
And then, obviously 14-year-old girls, they go on their own little thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then we didn't talk for a couple of years till she was 16. And, and that's when we reconnected again. And that's when our relationship pretty much was solid from that point on. And we just talked a lot at first, and then it was kind of on and off.
So off and on, that I just can't imagine how good that would have felt to you in prison to reconnect and have that relationship that you want to have, the communication you want to have with your daughter, knowing that she's on the outside, you're on the inside, but you have made this connection now. So putting things together in your life, you're educating yourself. You've got a good prison job. You're hanging around people that are trying to make themselves better. And now you've reconnected with your daughter, Bree. I guess the next step of this whole thing is kind of crazy by happenstance. Can you lead us through, Dion, how this all transpired? Because at the time that this happened with the governor, how long had you been in prison?
I would say I was in prison about 16 years at the time.
16 years?
16 years, yeah.
It's a good amount of time.
Oh, yeah, it's a lifetime, man.
Yeah.
It's a lifetime, yeah. And by that time, I transferred from a maximum security prison to a medium security prison. And they had revised the statute to the drug trafficking law and made it parolable. But they didn't run it retroactive. However, there was this guy.
Which is crazy when you think about it.
Oh, yeah. Usually that stuff is automatic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It automatically runs.
And this went to the Missouri Supreme Court, and they said, no.
Yeah.
No, not retroactive. Well, these guys that got wrapped up in this deal, it's a really bad deal. That's why they changed the law. Now we're going to keep that the same for them.
The hard part for me was it gave me a lot of hope because there was a guy named Demetrius Woods. And Demetrius Woods, he filed a declaratory judgment with the local court. And this judge agreed with him that it does run retroactive and granted him a parole hearing. The board seen him. They released him. He got out. And then, the Missouri State's attorney, he filed an appeal. Yeah, the attorney general filed an appeal, and then he had to fight it. Went all the way to the Western Court of Appeals, and I'm thinking, as soon as it goes here, I'm out. I'm walking out the door because they're going to agree. Yeah, got there and it got shot down 2-1. I was like, oh my God. I was like, I still got hope. It's going to go to the Supreme Court. And when it got to the Supreme Court, it got shot down, 6-1. And then I just lost all hope. And I was like, man, I really am going to die in here. Nothing's going to change, And, you lose hope. And it's terrifying, because once you get that hope, hope kind of creates blindness sometimes, So, you think you're going to get out. And then when this rug is swept out from underneath you, it's pretty dramatic.
Let's talk about hope a little bit because and you and I were having this discussion beforehand. I think, I was saying Romo, one of the guys who was on this podcast a while back, was talking about don't ever take hope away from a prisoner because that might be all they have. But I also think there's a thing about hope. And I think this is a good point that you make, Dion, is that hope can also make you lazy, that if you just think you can just hope and not take action towards what you're trying to get to, just hoping is not going to do a lot for you. You've got to hope and then take these steps to be where you want to be. And hopefully you fall into the opportunity that is what you want and that sets you free. But just hoping, there's a lot of people who just hope, but that doesn't mean it's just going to magically happen. Hoping with action is the thing that really can help you get to where you want to be.
Well, the thing is, man, you have to have the ability to create a vision for the future.
Right.
And then you have to have the ability to create the steps needed to reach that vision. And a lot of people don't.
That is such, just say that again.
I said,
that's such a big tip for life.
I said, you have to have the ability to create a vision for the future, and then you need the ability to create the steps needed to reach that vision. Yes. And, the first step one is you got to believe it's possible. And step two, you just can't be afraid. Don't let what you fear have mastery over you. Sometimes, and there's this quote that says, if you never try, you miss the mark 100% of the time. My life's all about action.
Well, and fear can be the warden of your freedom because, that is the thing. We were talking about this, Dion, nightmare success. Everybody says those two words don't belong together. They actually are together all the way through your life because anything you want is on the other side of that fear, right? So you have to, anything that's unknown is fearful, even if it's good, even if it's good fear. Even if it's a good unknown. So the nightmare part of it is stepping into and around, over, under whatever that unknown is. And your success is setting yourself free, that you've given yourself the confidence to step through that.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is so, so good just for daily living, because you can accomplish so much if you step.
Yeah. You know, the thing
and
is,
you gain confidence too, right?
Absolutely. You do, challenges are a part of a well-valued change. You know what I mean? So we're all going to face challenges in life, and, but you got to go into them head first. You just can't be afraid, and you can't fear rejection. It don't matter if you're going into a job or relationship or whatever.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just got to go for what you want. You know what I mean? And people are so afraid of rejection.
And I think that, being afraid, here's the thing I think about being afraid. I don't know that you know what that is, but you got that feeling in your stomach. And, like I was on that panel last week, and that nervousness that you feel, but you feel excited too. So whatever that is, everybody has it. It's just, you have to step through it. There might be something that scares the crap out of you, but you know that you got to step through it. And whatever that is in your body, you grit it. Grit it, you make it happen. And that's the thing that gives you confidence.
Yeah.
I take a step, I feel a little bit better. Take a step, wasn't nearly as bad as I thought. Take a third step, man, I'm going to make it.
That's right, man. You got to be relentless and unwavering in what you want to be. And, when I was blessed with a friend of mine, his name's Scott Harrison, who helped me, in my release. He did everything he could. He was a good friend for me, and he helped me with a place to stay when I got out with him and his wife. Gave me a job where I was making good money and everything else, And so I had a lot of help along the way, but it's all in your head, and it's all a part of your thinking.
So when this goes on with the governor, and these people go, and the high profile people going into the governor's office to speak on the behalf of people, your name comes up by happenstance of what someone had read the night before. And I think it might have even been online or something with that she was reading before she was having the meeting. So your name comes up. Does this word get back to you, Dion? Do you find out about this, or how do you find out about it?
Yeah. What happened was, my buddy Scott, his friend was a prosecuting attorney, and he asked his friend, "Hey, who can I get to help Dion?"
Okay.
And he said, "Hey, get a hold of this lady. She's I call her a super lawyer, but we couldn't afford her. We couldn't do anything like that. So my buddy Scott reached out to her. She never got back to him.
Yeah.
And then like one night on a Saturday night, she reached out to him like 3 a.m. in the morning. She's like, "What do you know about Dion?" And he gave her all the information. She goes, "I'm going to the Governor Monday, and I'll mention his name." Well, once that happened, I did know about that, right? So it gave me more hope.
Yeah.
But once she left the governor's office, she messaged Scott again one time, and that was it. She's like, "I did go to the governor's office. I did not really. She's like, "I didn't really talk about him, but I gave him your name."
Yeah.
Which was enough for him to see my name, and then, possibly
right.
Go into that.
One thing I meant to ask you, Dion, when all this was going on, your dad had passed away. Is that right?
He passed away in 94.
Okay. So your mom's still in this world, and how did she deal with all this that happened to you?
My mom had ended up going to prison as well, but not with me.
Yeah.
Like a year or so after I was incarcerated, and my mom, she kind of started losing her mind. There's parts.
Did she get a long sentence?
She got 10 years. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
There's things in there I didn't mention. Like my little brother committed suicide. There's so many different things, different aspects of that. So my mom was she was getting dementia. She was losing her mind. And so she went to prison. We didn't have contact for like 10 years. And, at around 2016 or 17, my mother and I reconnected in prison. And, we started talking then. So, it was
That's a lot.
Yeah. It was a difficult relationship because, you had to handle my mom with kid gloves.
How did that affect you with your brother's situation? Did that happen when you were in prison?
No. See, once my dad, here's the crazy part I didn't tell you about is, in 94, my little brother had got arrested for a DWI, and my dad went to bail him out of jail. My dad had a heart attack in the jailhouse, and he died. My little brother thought it was his fault, and
it's awful.
Yeah, so he ended up committing suicide several months later. The story is just so it's so crazy. I didn't really get into that, but like I said, all those different things, man.
That would have rolled up though. I mean, you have all those things rolling. Your life experiences are up there.
Yeah. So it all had a part to play in my spiral, downhill. So,
but I think that makes it even more incredible that you hit that rock bottom moment and said, hey, I'm stopping it right here. This cycle stops here and I'm going to cycle back up.
Yeah. The thing is, man, you can't force change upon somebody, man. Change has to start within. My change started within. And I changed because I wanted to. Here's the thing. People say, I'm going to change for my daughter. I'm going to change for my dad, my mom. Man, I'm not changing for nobody. I'm changing for myself, because once I change myself, then I can help them.
Mm-hmm.
But until then, it's got to be for yourself. You're the most important person, and then you can help them.
Well, and along the way, you're trying to reach out in prison, not just with this governor thing, but you reached out to people on the outside, from the Kim Kardashian, other people trying to get petitions. Bree's helping you to sign petitions. So you're out there.
Yeah.
You're not just sitting back thinking, I hope somebody helps me out. You're out there pushing the envelope, hoping that some of these things that you're doing can affect the change that you want. And then you get notified that this meeting that happened comes back to you. And then how do you get the notification that there is going to be a parole hearing? How does that come about to you?
Well, the thing I forgot to mention also, during that, several years before, I'd found out I had another daughter. Her name's Dakota. And, that gave me another reason to kind of keep going on. It gave me,
Did you guys connect?
Yeah, we did. We connected, and we wrote and talked on the phone on and off, and we had an on and off relationship, and she started to become a big part of my life, and she gave me more hope as well.
That's awesome.
So, but to get back to the question that you asked is, you and I talked about this before. So once the petition came out and it was on the internet, this lady had reached out to us, and her name was, Melissa Seymour, and she had this company. I can't even remember the name of it at the time. And this was a few months before I got out. And this lady had reached out and said, hey, I can help you get out of prison. I guarantee I can get you out. If you give me $2,500, I'm going to get you out. I'd already filed a clemency with the governor. And this lady, at the time, little did I know, she was a scam artist, and it's kind of like a Ponzi scheme. She'd been in prison before, but I didn't know, and
and they're all over the place. These prison consultants they go from prison to prison to prison with people who are desperate to give them money because they think that they're going to be able to do something for them.
Yeah, she did, and she reached out, and she suckered us, and everybody in prison at that time got the stimulus check, believe it or not, every inmate. So I had like $1,500 saved up, and I sent her that money. My buddy Scott sent her $1,000, and, this is during COVID. So, there was a thing she told me when I first talked to her on the phone. She says, Dion, she goes, sorry, I was at the hospital. I was with my husband. He's had cancer 3 times. I was like, oh my God, my mom just passed away 2 years ago of cancer. And, she's like, oh, yeah, it's bad. And so she had me calling all these different people from LA to Georgia and everything else. And it just seemed strange to me, but my buddy Scott's like, man, it's COVID. Don't worry about it. And then she reached out a couple weeks later, and she's like, sorry, I was MIA for a week. She's like, Dion, I got cancer. I was like, oh my God, you got cancer? I said, you and your husband both got cancer? She's like, no, honey, he doesn't. I do. And I was like, man, something
these dots don't connect.
Yeah, they don't connect. And immediately I was like, look, I got to call you back. I'll call my buddy Scott. And he's like, dude, you're tripping. So he called her up, and she's like, oh, honey, he just heard me wrong. Tell him to call me. And I called her, and she's like, you just misheard me. He has had cancer twice. I was like, man, it went from 3 times to 0 to 2. I was like, man, I want my money back. And then, long story short, man, her site shut down. Every email was shut down. Every phone number was shut down. Yeah, we'd been had. She took everything and ran. And come find out she'd been in prison several times, for fraud and everything else. So, I lost hope again then too. Mm-hmm. And then my buddy Scott, man, he was on it. I mean, he's a childhood friend of mine who I grew up with, and we lost contact for, many, many years of my life. And he reached out to me in prison and found me. And, he was a very good advocate for me and friend, and I love the dude with all my heart. And he literally started making phone calls. And this guy runs his own company, a concrete company. So he doesn't have a lot of time. So he's making all these phone calls, and he calls the lawyer of Demetrius Woods who got him out. And he talked to one of the attorneys there, and they said, hey, listen, man, don't pay any more money for an attorney because, they're eventually, within a year, a lot of these guys are going to be out. Something's going to happen. So it gave me more hope. And then I was in the gym one day and sitting in the gym working out, and my boss came to me and said, hey, man, you need to go back to the housing unit. He's like, the parole officer needs to see you. I'm thinking, I've got a non-parolable sentence. There's no reason for me to go back and see a parole officer. It just seemed odd to me.
Right.
So I get back there, I'm waiting in a lobby, man, and she calls me in. She's like, hey. And then she hands us a little blue piece of paper, and she says, hey, your prior release date for 12/29/2034 or whatever it was has been canceled. You're now eligible for parole. You have a parole hearing on like March 18th. And I was like, what? I just jumped up. I was like, are you serious? I was like, man, I thought to myself, I've got 17 years in. I'm walking out the door, but there's still that little, I was like 98% sure I was going home, but there's still that 2%.
Yeah.
It's like,
you still have the hearing.
Yeah. They're like, but I'm thinking, the parole board could say whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
They're like, they might not want to let me go.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter the change I made. And I was like, and I kept thinking to myself, man, so this change wasn't for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Maybe, it will help, So, by the grace of God, I seen the parole board. And it's funny because when I seen this, they gave me this yellow envelope that was sealed. The parole officer did, and I looked at it. It said Dion Soubasis, hand delivered to Dion Soubasis, and then the parole officer's like, "Well, open it." She wanted to see what it was. It was from the
She wanted to take a look at it.
It's from the governor, so I opened it up, man, and it's my clemency in it, and it literally says on there, it says, partially due to my change. You know what I mean? And
all the things that you did while you were in prison.
While I was in prison.
Man, how did that make you feel?
Oh, man, it made me feel good. It was recognized. And the governor doesn't just say, oh, well, all these people want you out, so we're just going to let you out. They investigate you. They talk to staff. They talk to, family.
But see,
friends.
that means something because the staff spoke for you.
Yeah, they did, And I remember seeing the warden, at that time, I seen him walking down the walk. I was like, man, did you hear what happened? He goes, man, of course I knew what happened. He goes, I knew about 2 weeks before you did. I was like, oh, man. Yeah, I was like, you're good at keeping a secret, And, and it made me feel really good. And the thing is.
And you've been giving him haircuts?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And the funny thing is even people in prison, they see me walking out of walk, and everybody knew me. I've been incarcerated for a long time, and people knew I changed. And the blessing is that people respected that. They respected the person I was before, and they respected the person I was now. And it made me feel good that people would yell at me on the walk and like, man, everybody called me Dago in prison. Like, Dago, man, I heard, and
they're happy for you.
Yeah, and it just made me feel.
And that's really, that's something too. There's so many good guys in prison that want good things for the guys in prison.
Yeah, they do.
You don't see that a lot projected out here because everybody's just assume that all these people are just bad people and they're all killing each other and stabbing each other and whatever. There's a lot of guys in there that are for each other, wanting good things for each other, and you feel that. You do.
Yeah, you do. Here's the thing. I've met guys in prison. One of them, his name's Vale, and he's one of my best friends. He's in prison. He was a gang member. He's in there for murder and everything else. And I've met guys that's in there for murder, have killed people. And these are some of the best people I've ever met in my entire life. And I literally would trust them around my grandchildren. You know what I mean? There's people on the streets I wouldn't trust around my grandkids. These guys, I know for a fact they would protect my family with their life, and they've changed their lives, and they are incredible individuals, and I don't see them as murderers. I see them as, this guy's a good guy, and they're out now. And, a few of them are, like my friend who I told you about, Jim, and another buddy of mine named Curry Hill. And these guys are out and they're living life to the fullest, and they got good jobs, great careers, and they're doing really well for themselves, man. And people can change. The thing is not everyone changes, but everyone can change. And when you see it, you respect it. I'm like, man, I love the fact that I see somebody change. It just makes me feel so good.
Yeah. I want to tell you something that I heard the other day, and I'm just thinking of this because, Dion, you're making this analogy to me now. There was this guy that was talking about being in prison. And this old man took him aside, and he was getting beaten up every day. He was trying to fit in, couldn't fit in. He was just fighting the whole system. And the old man said, I've been here a long time. And he said, this place is like a boiling pot of water. He said, you put a carrot in that boiling pot of water. He said, what happens to the carrot? And Damon said, well, it gets soft. He said, okay, you can't get soft in here, right? He said, that's right. He said, all right. He said, I'll give you an egg. He said, I put that egg in the water. What's the water do to the egg? He said, it makes the egg hard. He said, but you want your heart to be hard in here. He said, you can't have that. He said, now put a coffee bean in this water. He said, what happens? And he said, I don't know what happens with a coffee bean in water. He said, the coffee bean changes the water, it turns it to coffee. He said, that's what you got to be in here. And the guy said, wow, it's pretty deep. That's what you did, Dion. You changed the water in prison. You changed yourself in prison. I mean, you became a coffee bean. And I heard that the other day, and I thought, man, I haven't ever heard that before. But I was looking for a time to use that analogy, but that's what you did. You turned the coffee bean, but you changed the water. The water didn't change you.
Right. You know, and the thing is, man, we all want to live a better story, you know, and I wanted to live a better story. I knew that I had more to my story than what it was. And, you know, there's a lot of things I gained. And the thing is, you know, emotional intelligence is one of them. And I learned to be a great communicator, you know, and just like I told you earlier, emotional intelligence is, you know, how am I making you feel? And that's one thing that I want to be as a great communicator. I want to know how I make people feel. And, you know, my story is still being written. I'm living, you know, I got a great career, you know.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, you know, people say, oh, man, life on the streets is hard, man. Life is what you make of it. So, you know, I got out. I did have help, you know.
Let's talk about you getting out, though. I mean,
oh, man.
I mean, let's talk about that. You 16 years in prison.
17
years in prison. Yeah, well, I don't want to cut that short.
Yeah.
17 years in prison. Walk us through the day.
Man, I got out, you know, and my brother had sent me an iPhone 11 Pro Max. So, you know, they didn't have, you know, Facebook and all that stuff, you know.
None of that.
Sure didn't have an iPhone 11 Pro Max. So I get this within
It was BlackBerry world in that, back then.
And
when
flip phones.
Yeah, flip phones.
So I get this phone within 30 seconds. I wanted to break this phone and throw it because I couldn't figure it out.
Figure out what was going on. Yeah, it's just a little screen.
Oh, my God. It was incredible. And
it's all screen.
Yeah, it was technology. I'm still learning my phone. Things that make me phone is people who drive. They can't drive in my cell phone. And you know,
where do you go from the parking lot? What happens? You get out. Your brother picks you up.
No, not my brother. It was my buddy Scott. And
your buddy Scott picks you up. You get out of there fast. Say goodbye to everybody. You know, that's one of the things too. I think that I couldn't have been more excited about getting out, but there was some couple of guys that I felt really bad that I was leaving behind because, you know, I knew they had so much more time. And there's that feeling too, which is kind of odd. It's like you're leaving somebody on the battlefield or something, but it clearly didn't override the feeling of the euphoria of getting out. But walk me through that feeling, because I very rarely get to talk to somebody who's had, you know, 17 years in prison, walking out of prison. What's going through your mind?
So imagine this, right? Believe it or not, it's raining. I felt like that guy, you know, I felt like the guy in Shawshank Redemption where it's raining. Literally, I had my box of stuff. I walked outside the parking lot. It's raining. I dropped my box. I put my hands up there. I was like, I'm free. I just started screaming and yelling. And I was like, man, we need to get in this vehicle and leave as quick as possible in case they try to take me back. You know what I mean? So we get in there, man. It's so surreal. I'm shaking. You know, and I'm just looking around everywhere, and I'm like, this just can't be real.
Yeah.
And, you know, we get back to their house, and, you know, I eat, you know, I wanted, you know.
Food.
I wanted real food, and I eat real food and stuff. We get back to their house, and 5 days later, man, I'm doing concrete, working in Springfield, Illinois, making, you know, $53.
With your buddy?
Oh, yeah, making $53 an hour. Who else can do that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
However, the job doesn't last forever. It's called prevailing wage. And I was blessed. I was able to save up money. My buddy Scott gave me a car. You know, he got me set in the right path, man.
Gave you a helping hand.
Gave me a car, and everything else. And then once that job was over, I moved on to something else. It wasn't glamorous at all. It was termite pest control.
Yeah.
You know, but I was like, man, it's a great job. I get on company vehicle. I drive around.
Yeah.
I have the opportunity to make more money. And then I was still living paycheck to paycheck. You know what I mean? I just wasn't doing it. And my brother, he worked for Honda in Florida, and he was the F&I director. And I was like, dude, what's the car business like? You know, and he's like, man, you need to get into it. You know, so I went to Cunis Auto Group in Quincy, Illinois. And I was like, when I went in there, man, I was like, check this out. I was like, this is what I can bring to the table, you know? And they were like, I didn't even sign no paperwork. They're like, you're hired. They gave me my job. I was like, check this out. Here's what I can bring to the table. Somebody else doesn't, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't immediately tell them I've been in prison for 17 years. I said, look, here's what I can bring to the table, you know? And they were like, man.
They bought you.
They invested in me, man. They gave me my star. And I'm telling you right now, man, I'm so blessed in life now.
You're killing it there. Let's talk about how you're doing there.
Oh, man. I mean, it's such a blessing.
Because it's not an easy job. There's long hours.
It's an emotional roller coaster, 12 to 15 hour days, but I don't live paycheck to paycheck. You know, I'm living.
That's why we're doing this today, because it's your Tuesday off.
This is my Tuesday off, man. I get Sundays and Tuesdays, you know, and it's one of the best opportunities I've ever had. And, you know, QNS Auto Group is great. You know, they gave me my start, and I'm so blessed to be able to work for a company that treats you so good. They give you an opportunity to make unlimited potential. You know, it's unlimited potential, you know, and I'm really blessed not to live paycheck to paycheck, and I could pretty much, you know,
you're doing good.
I'm blessed, man. I'm
blessed,
you're good.
You know? I mean,
I'm not rich, but I tell you, I'm rich in my heart, you know, in life. But
and the other thing is, you've got a couple of grandkids, right?
Yeah, man, I got 3 of them.
Let's talk about that.
I just seen one last night. I went to Dakota's last night, and got to see my little grandson. His name is little Junebug, man. He's the cutest little guy in the world. And then I got my other 2 grandkids that live in Quincy. So I got one daughter that lives in St. Louis, Dakota, and then my other daughter, Bree, she lives in Quincy. So she lives right near me. So I get to see her and my other 2 grandkids, you know, Bryce and Monroe. You know, she's a young little girl. She's just so incredible. And Bryson is too. And my daughter is probably one of the most incredible women I've ever met in my entire life. I love her so much. And, you know, it feels good. I don't get to see her every day, you know, but at least, you know, once a week or whatever. Sometimes I'll just call her and be like, hey, you want to go to lunch with me? I'll take her out to lunch, and we just have a great time. And I'm pretty boring, though.
But you're enjoying the good stuff,
listen,
you know?
Here's the thing, man. You know what's crazy is I'm not a bar person. I don't do none of that type of stuff. It's just not for me. I'm not comfortable around that environment, you know. So I get off work, I go home, cook me something to eat. I got a refrigerator full of steaks and whatever. And believe it or not, man, I got
Sounds
blessed.
Good.
You know, I wake up at 5 in the morning, man, and I drink my coffee and I go downstairs.
Hit it.
I live above my gym.
Okay.
You know, I mean, obviously you can tell I work out. So I just walk right downstairs. Super convenient, man. I go to my 24-hour gym and I go down there and I jog, you know, 1 mile to 2 miles, and I work out, and, you know, it makes me feel good. And then I just go to work. And I mean, there's very few people that wake up and go, I can't wait to go to work.
Yeah,
more than people.
But you love it.
I love it, man. I can't wait to go to work, and I'm like, what's going to happen today, you know? And you know, life is blessed, and I'm just happy to be where I'm at, you know.
Well, and you've even been able to go out and do some speaking.
Yes, I've been invited
recently.
Yeah, I've had a few people invite me to, you know, to be a guest speaker at different places, and my friend Leslie Harden, you know, she invited me to speak at her facility, and I just did that last Wednesday. And I like to encourage and inspire people with a story that, you know, that here's the thing, that they can do better. You know what I mean? You just got to set your mind to it. It's amazing what the mind and body is capable of, you know, and most people don't believe in themselves, man. You just got to believe in yourself. You know what? Here's the thing. When I was in prison, I planned this all. I planned it.
You saw the vision of it.
I created a vision. You know what I mean? Even though I thought I'd die in there, I still had another vision. And I was like, this is what's going to happen, man. And I planned it, man. And I'm going to keep doing it. And I'm going to keep doing great things. And I told people, I called some people on the phone, and I was like, you watch and see if and when I get out, I'm going to do great things. And people didn't really believe me. You know what I mean?
I think, Dion, that's such a big tip to give to the listeners, because a goal with a plan, whether you're in prison or whether you're out of prison, it keeps you focused on the good stuff. Even when you get knocked down, you know, I always say that, you know, not having a plan is like having a map, having a destination, and you see, how does that analogy go? Having a goal and a plan. So if you have one, you can drive right to it. It's like your map. Yeah. But if you don't, you can drive around all day long and run out of gas because you don't have a map to it. So your whole thing that you did kept you alive in prison, kept you being you. And it's kind of going back to this Shawshank Redemption deal. He chipped through that wall every single night for 20 years because he had that Zewantaneo in his mind. That's where he was going to get to. If he could just get through that wall. And he got through that wall. And that's what you did. You kept hitting that wall every night, and you got free. And now you're out. You got the good stuff. You say you're boring, but you're living the life of realizing that the things around you, the little things, are the important things that you enjoy.
Well, you know, just like I told you before, you know, the thing is that, you know, a guy in prison told me, he said, we all have 3 men inside of us. He said, the man that we are, the man that people see us as, and the man that we want to be. You know, I'm still working on the man I want to be. Yeah. And, you know, I know my story is still being written, and I'm just going for what I want.
So Dion, out of all these things, because it's just such a cool story how you've survived it all. What do you think, to impart to the audience your takeaways of what you've gone through to them?
You know, what it is, you know, you can't let your past really define who you are. You know, you can be anybody and anything you want to be, but you got to have the courage to go for it. You know, don't let people tell you, you know, if people say, man, you're a loser, or if you're an addict, or if you're whatever, don't let them tell you this is what you are, because that's going to be ingrained in your head, and that's what you're going to think you are. And you think you can't get better, but you can. You're going to be whatever you want to be. You ain't no loser. You ain't no addict. You know what I'm saying? You are what you
believe.
But what you believe, you know, you can accomplish anything that you want to accomplish, man, but you got to believe in yourself. That's the biggest thing, man. And most people don't believe in themselves, you know.
I love that. Well, we'll end it there because that's a great place to end it, Dion. You're a cool guy doing cool stuff. Incredible story. We've just met, but I'm really proud of how you've done and stepped through all this, and the person you are, and what a great story for other people to see how that can work. It's inspiring. It really is.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on your show.
It's so privileged and so proud to have you here. For anybody out there still looking for a book to read, I wrote one, Nightmare Success. Love the likes. Share this thing as often as you can. It's a great way to get the audience to know what we're doing. Leave a review on Apple. If you want to leave me a message on brentcassidy.com, my website. As I always said when I was writing to people from Leavenworth, stay strong and I'll do the same. Nightmare Success, in and out. Thanks for being here today.